Robocop just ended, but we're just getting started. This is the post-movie recap of the 2014 remake of Robocop. And now, here are two guys who are field reporters for the Pat Novak element. It's Rob Cesternino and Tyler Smith. Tyler, welcome to post-show recaps. This is your first podcast with us. Coming to us as a podcaster on Battleship Pretension. Welcome to post-show recaps.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here. And I'm excited to hear the bell there, right after my name. It's very exciting.
There you go. And so this is a first here on post-show recaps. So now we've been living up to our name. We have been podcasting after Walking Dead. We've got 13 days of House of Cards going on right now on post-show recaps. But that we made a promise that post-show recaps is the place to go to recap TV and movies. So it was time to get a movie under our belt, and Tyler said, hey, we got to talk about Robocop, and here we are.
Well, admittedly, I did say that, yes, we should talk about Robocop, but I don't know if anybody has got to talk about Robocop.
It doesn't seem like Robocop.
It's not the most essential film in the world.
Yes,
but it's interesting.
Okay. It's interesting, and there's a lot to talk about here. So this is the 2014 remake of Robocop. We are going to spoil the F out of it, although I don't really think Robocop can be spoiled. I kind of think that this is a movie podcast. I kind of feel like even if you haven't seen Robocop, if you have no interest in seeing Robocop, I feel like you can listen to this and follow exactly what's going on. There's not really any big plot twists or anything like that you're going to be like, oh, man, you ruined the whole movie for me.
Yeah, not really. It's not that. It doesn't throw a lot of reveals at you. It's just, hey, here's a movie about a robot cop, and then that's the end of it.
That's the end of it. There's no big, major, left turns or anything like that. So you can't ruin RoboCop for you. It's more of a movie that you probably need to see to appreciate. I thought it was really a lot of really cool effects in RoboCop. And so a lot to talk about here along the way. So post-movie recaps, this is going to be another podcast we're going to have for you on post-show recaps. It's going to have its own feed in iTunes. This is the first one yet, so we don't have that up in iTunes yet. But after this one, you'll be able to subscribe to post-movie recaps, the movie arm of post-show recaps at postshowrecaps.com. And, of course, you can use our hashtag PSRecaps to be able to tweet to us during the show or after the fact. And we also have our live chat room up on postshowrecaps.com, and you can also leave us comments on our YouTube video as well, and we will try to get those into the show as well for you here today. Jam-packed. Let's see you try that, Pat Novak. Boy, can you imagine in the future when we have these podcasts, we're like, all right, let's see what people are saying in the chat room. I'm like, oh, okay, let's open that up. But, how many days do you think Samuel L. Jackson had to work on RoboCop?
Oh, if I had to guess, I'd say maybe half a day.
It was a half day for Samuel L. Jackson. It's funny because I watch How I Met Your Mother, and they've done a lot of this season of like having people like on phone calls where they did one big episode like Bryan Cranston on the next post-show recap, and you just got to feel like Bryan Cranston, like he was like at a desk like on the phone like, Ted, it's your old boss. And they must have shot that in like half an hour, and that's kind of how I feel like they shot the Samuel L. Jackson scenes in this movie.
But you know what? I'll say this, not to get into it too quickly, but hey, when it's that good and when he can nail it that quickly, who am I to say they should do a second take?
It was good. Okay, so RoboCop. I guess let's start off and let's just compare, apple to apple. RoboCop 1987 versus RoboCop 2014. Tyler, were you a fan of the original RoboCop?
Very much so. I'm a big fan of that director, Paul Verhoeven. He directed Total Recall. He directed Starship Troopers, and Basic Instinct and Showgirls. They can't all be winners, but yeah, I like his style, which is usually insanely violent and with a healthy dose of satire and a lot of melodrama in there too. And so the first RoboCop, I think that is that his best film? Yeah, I think that's his best film.
Yeah, I had not really ever seen the 1987 RoboCop. It was sort of in a weird spot for me where I was born in 1978, so it came out when I was 9. So it was sort of like my parents wouldn't let me watch it because it was rated R, and so
Yeah.
I wasn't able to see it. And then by the time I got old enough to watch R-rated movies, it had kind of been out for a while, and I kind of forgot about it. But I remember RoboCop being very much part of the pop culture. I had a RoboCop Nintendo game, so I sort of knew of the folklore of RoboCop, but I had not
That's
ever seen the film until we were going to do this podcast. I went back and watched it this week.
that's the fascinating thing about the culture of RoboCop, is that uh, they did market like toys and video games to children. That is a hard R. Like no, because I'm sure there's kids like, hey, what's this neat video game, or what's this neat action figure? I'm gonna go back and watch this thing and get nightmares for the rest of my childhood. So it's one of those. I feel like that could only happen in the 80s and early 90s. But so you're saying you saw it for the first time,
Yeah,
essentially the first time this week.
this week, right.
All right. So I've got a history with it. What did you think?
Oh, I really enjoyed the first RoboCop. The 1987 RoboCop I thought was really, really fun. Like it's super cheesy. I don't know how well some of the things I guess hold up okay. But I really love all of these asides where there's like scenes where it's sort of like Kentucky Fried Movie where there's like they go to commercials on TV and it's really, really silly at times. But there's a lot of like real laugh out loud moments in the first RoboCop. And it's very, very fun. And I felt like tonally, RoboCop 2014 is a much different movie than RoboCop 1987.
Very much so. I feel like, I mean, that first one could almost be considered a comedy.
Yeah,
I mean, there's just as many laughs as like, thrills, maybe even more. Whereas the new one, it's much more.
serious.
And this is
super serious. It's
yeah,
very,
earnest is what I was. Yeah.
yeah. I would say there's more or less. Would you say are there 5 jokes in RoboCop 2014?
It's hard to say if they're jokes. There's a lot of performances that actually got me chuckling, but in a good way. Like Michael Keaton being his absolute Michael Keatonist.
Yeah. The
I
guy.
enjoyed him a lot.
Yeah, the guy from This Is the End, Jay Baruchel.
Jay Baruchel, yeah.
He gives a funny performance, but there's really not a lot of comedy here in this movie. There's one or two lines, but it's more of a movie that takes itself much more seriously than RoboCop 1987.
Very much so.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into RoboCop 2014, and I feel like RoboCop 2014 comes with a stronger message than RoboCop 1987, and the message is that whatever is happening with the robots, this is a bad thing. We should be against any sort of robots because it's bad. But I have to say, I'm not exactly sure why the robots are bad.
Well, I'll say this. I liked the new one way more than I expected to. I still don't like it that much, so you can figure out how much I was expecting to like it. But yeah, there is more satire, or maybe not satire, but there's more commentary in it than I expected, and so their use of the word, like sometimes they say robots, but they often say drones, and so
Yes.
there's something politically, there's something
Political.
of yeah. So like the idea of like, oh, we will not have drones on our home soil. It's like, oh, well, that's there's a Rand Paul filibuster about that very topic like a year ago or something like that. So it actually is trying to be somewhat relevant. I think it's kind of perfunctory. I don't think it does it in any kind of major way, but it was nice that they gave it a shot.
Now, Tyler, I'm not super on top of all of the politics of drones and whatnot, but the drones, correct me if I'm wrong, the drones are controlled by people, right? We don't have drones that are flying around, and like the drones are carrying out orders of people that are controlling them, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So I kind of feel like it's not really like I don't know if necessarily drones are inherently bad. It seems like the people that are controlling the drones. And I felt like even with the robots that they created in this movie, there was never a scenario where, even in RoboCop 1987, there was a scenario where the robots malfunctioned and killed a guy in a meeting, which was sort of a very funny death
Oh, it's
in that
delightful.
movie. But there was really no moment in RoboCop 2014 where the robots went amok and did stuff that they were supposed to do. The closest you come to that is in the beginning of the movie where the kid has the knife, but I kind of felt like the robot acted like it was supposed to in that scenario.
Yeah, the kid was threatening with the knife. That whole sequence, it's technically very well handled, but the thing that gets me is like, I'm not sure where that's supposed to be, like just general Middle East, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they said like I wasn't sure how I was supposed to be feeling in that scenario. Like I didn't know if I was rooting for the robots or I was rooting for the terrorists. It's
Right.
sort of like we had sort of like out of control or we have like militaristic robots versus terrorists. I'm like, which side am I on here? I'm not sure.
Well, and that's the thing is, I
I
think
think
the
the movie
film.
wanted me to agree, wanted me to be on the side of the terrorists, but I was kind of like, these are bad guys. These are suicide bombers.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They have you the terrorists are colluding and they're saying now, look, we don't want to kill anybody. We just want to die on TV. And it's just like, yeah, I don't think you're really approximating terrorists here because I'm pretty sure their first a lot of terrorists, I think their first priority is to kill a lot of people and yes, also probably die in a public way, but yeah, but like I feel like they really overstepped their bounds by being like these are the most humane terrorists you could ever imagine.
Yeah, these terrorists are really just like have a finger on the pulse of Novak Element, and they must be regular watchers, and they know like, okay, guys, we got Novak Element is going to be filming live in our streets tonight. This is where the plan is. We are going to take out the robot. I have to say also, it seemed like the robot police force in wherever that was in the Middle East seemed a little over the top, I would say.
I mean I liked it, but it's they seem efficient. I'll say that right now.
I mean, did we need like how what do you call those things that were they called them
Well, the
ED
the
in
the Ed 209.
Ed 209? Is that what they call it in the new movie too?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I
I don't
think
know if
that's
you
what.
needed like 7 Ed 209s on that one street. Maybe they had them all there because they knew Novak Element was going to be there, but that seemed like
Maybe.
a little bit of overkill. Do we like the idea of robot soldiers more than robot cops?
You mean like me personally, or humanity?
Either one.
I think I like the idea of robot soldiers. Well, maybe I. You know what? I have to say, much as I don't like saying this, I think I probably agree with the film. I think I'm not super thrilled with the idea of robots carrying out our bidding, just
See,
because.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the robot police and the robot soldiers. I think they seem pretty official or like I think they would get the job done. I'm a little concerned. I don't want them putting good people of Detroit out of work. There's a lot of police
Right.
officers, and I don't want them going out of work. But I kind of feel like uh, going into harm's way, keeping the peace. I feel like I think I'm okay with this idea.
I mean, if they work some of the bugs out, and that's the thing is in the new one, there, like you said, there's really not that many bugs. There are some major bugs in the Ed 209 system in the first film.
Yeah, yeah, they're
But,
working it all out in whatever. What year is that supposed to be in the 1987 RoboCop?
oh, if I had to guess,
It's
I
like
don't know, maybe like
2003.
probably something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Um. Anyway, so
And then
say,
actually, real quick, that's something that does bother me between the two movies, and I feel bad just constantly comparing between the two, but I feel like we can't help it. Um, I got a much greater sense of just how far gone Detroit was in the first film. This time, it just seems kind of like it's got crime, like everywhere else.
yeah,
You know
it
what I mean? Like,
doesn't seem too bad.
yeah.
Whereas the Detroit 1987 was a real cesspool.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was actually pretty prescient in that sense. You hear stories about Detroit now, and they're terrifying.
Yeah. So I have to say that the terrorists' plan seems like it didn't exactly work out the way they wanted it to because the Novak Element audience did not. It was sort of like at the end of what they did, like you would imagine that the terrorists' plan was that everybody would be like, oh my God, I can't believe what's happening there. But like by the end of that whole sequence, Novak is like, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's a great job there. But look at those robots go.
Yeah, it was not a well thought out plan for the most part because it's like, oh, they did say that their goal was to die on TV. Mission accomplished, they did, but then what? Like, did they want people to be like, oh, somebody's dying on TV? It's like, yeah, somebody who's still, even if they say they don't want to hurt anybody, they were blowing up. Like, there's got to be some collateral damage there. Like,
Yeah, because
kids are on the side of the street.
I think people had the takeaway. Boy, it's a good thing that they just killed all those robots and it wasn't soldiers that got killed.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's a good thing we've got all those robots instead of people. Let's get more robots. Yeah.
Get more robots. And even like the part where it was supposed to, I guess, pull on the heartstrings of the audience of the movie, of the kid being shot by the robot. I feel like that part wasn't even seen by the Novak Element audience.
Yeah, not really. And it wasn't really seen by us either. We got to know this kid for about, I don't know, 45 seconds
Yeah.
before he pulls a knife and dies.
No, that was sad. It was sad. That was
I'm
regrettable.
sorry.
But I kind of feel like in the name of progress, though, I feel like we need to keep moving forward with what Omnicorp I think has some good ideas.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So after that, then we come back to the Novak Element, and he's talking a little bit about the state of the world. And so Novak sort of sets this up, which I thought was interesting. Apparently, that Omnicorp has robots everywhere else in the world. That somehow we are able to, we've got Omnicorp robots on every other country in the world, keeping the peace. But for some reason, we just can't get them domestically. Is this a major problem for Omnicorp? I mean, they have the whole entire rest of the world locked down. Like, is it really that domestic market that's really hurting the sales that much?
Yeah, they didn't seem to be. It doesn't seem like if you've cornered the global market as far as policing the world, I feel like you're probably not hemorrhaging money the way they seem to think they were.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess they could always, maybe that's a comment on corporate culture. They could always have more.
I don't know. Did we take over the rest of the world? Is that why we were able, or did every other government around the world decide that they were okay with the robots being on the streets and keeping the peace, and we're just not into it?
I think it's probably a combination of both. It's about our, jeez, it's about our American imperialism, Rob. Like we're the ones that are going to police the world. Sorry, I don't mean to sound like some kind of hippie. But like it's so we sort of probably, if I had to guess, forced our robot soldiers onto other countries so that we felt safer. And my guess is they didn't have much say in the matter.
Yeah, I think so. That sounds about right. So, all right, let's start to get into our main character, Alex Murphy, who is named the same as 1987, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's kind of like where the similarities end. Like, and this movie deals a lot more with Murphy and his separation anxiety from his wife and kid, whereas in the 1987 movie, he has a wife and kid, and then they're just gone, and we really never see them again. He goes and looks at his old house at some point, but overall, it's not that much of a bummer for the Peter Weller RoboCop.
I think it is. I think it is a bummer. I mean, he loses his family, like the Joel Kinnaman RoboCop. He's not the man he was, but he still has access to his family, and I felt like that was not quite as tragic. When it comes right down to it, he can still play with his kid and all that.
Yeah. So you feel like that it was more traumatic for the original RoboCop, just that his wife just left and married somebody else, started over in a new life.
Yeah, and admittedly, she does think he's dead. I don't think she's a callous woman. But I think that's a much more tragic thing, because as he's discovering his humanity again, it's like, oh, but to what purpose? Now I'm human and I have emotions and I'm alone. So I feel like it's a sadder thing.
So the whole RoboCop storyline ends up starting with our Alex Murphy and his partner, Michael K. Williams, Omar from The Wire, and Chalky from Boardwalk Empire. They're investigating dirty cops. There's dirty cops, and they're selling guns to a bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. That was fine, I guess. I don't know. It's
going undercover, looking for the dirty cops.
And that goes to what I was saying before. Like, it really does just seem like their police force is pretty normal, whereas, like, in the original, damn it, I'm sorry to keep bringing up the original, but I can't help it. In the original, like, you really feel like, oh, these cops are just they're up against the wall. Like, they're not going to win. They're never going to win. Whereas in the new one, it's just like, all we got to do is get rid of these dirty cops and we win. It just seems like much lower ambition. But it was fine. I always enjoy seeing Michael K. Williams.
Yeah. And so, and what was his name in the movie? His Jack Lewis. Was
Yes.
that the name of the partner in the original RoboCop also? Except it was
Yeah,
a woman.
it was a woman. Her name was Anne Lewis, and frankly, I liked in the original. I liked that RoboCop was partnered with a woman. I thought that was an interesting idea.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting as well. I liked how they were sharing a locker room in the police department in the original 1987 RoboCop. That was very progressive for the Detroit PD.
That's the thing that Paul Verhoeven likes to do. If you see Starship Troopers, did you ever see that one?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so there's like co-ed showers and stuff like that. In the not too distant future, a lot fewer hang-ups about that sort of thing apparently.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I'm on board yet for this. That is too progressive.
Yeah, I could barely shower with other guys.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm nervous. I'm nervous about that. Okay, well, this is all part of this crazy despotic future where men and women are taking showers together. All right, so that we have this whole big backstory where Lewis and Murphy are investigating the dirty cops, and apparently somebody's taking the guns from evidence and getting them back on the street to our bad guy. What's his name again? Vallon. Vallon. And Vallon's a real a-hole because he's getting these guns. And what are people doing with all these machine guns in Detroit?
I don't shooting them. I guess maybe it's a way station. Maybe they're sending them off to other places in the country. I don't know. I didn't get much of a sense of who Vallon was. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what his business is. He's basically doing a lot with these machine guns, but I found there to be a surprising amount of machine gun fire happening in a major city, and not being too alarming to anybody. I mean, that firefight that Murphy and Lewis have with Vallon's guys it seems like nobody really seems to show up to that. I mean, that's like a major war zone happening, and it wasn't like a big deal. Like, I mean, Murphy had to call when Lewis gets shot. He's like, we got a man down. Like, there's machine gun fire happening. We're not getting like a major police presence here.
I'm sure they figured, well, the cops are already there, so they'll just handle it themselves.
Yeah. All right. So then after that happens, then there's the dirty cops that are working with Vallon, and so after a visit to go see Lewis in the hospital, unfortunately, Murphy gets... I think this was a pretty elaborate plan to take Murphy out. They put this sort of car bomb in his car that sort of sets off the car alarm, and then when you open it, it like pops the door open and it makes a big explosion. That was a very ingenious plan they had.
Yeah, but didn't they put the bomb on his car like outside the precinct or something, and then he drove home in it?
Yes, this
got
was
out.
A very elaborate plan, because it was like it was devastating.
Pretty roundabout, I gotta say. Like, they could just shoot him. That's an option. They've got the guns.
And Mrs. Murphy, Clara is her name, right? That it was Alex and Clara were this close to getting down to business, and then that car alarm always knows the right moment to go off.
And then after that, he is unable to do that ever again.
Yes, he was so close. We will talk about the anatomically correctness or lack thereof of the RoboCop suit. So then the car alarm goes off and he goes outside, and he ends up getting blown up pretty good. But I have to say, did you think the damage was that extensive to Murphy after the explosion for them to have to get rid of so much of his body?
I don't think so. I mean, like, as they were listing things off, certainly it sounded pretty bad, and they did mention that, like, I think his spinal cord had been severed, so he wouldn't be able to walk again, so it's like, all right, so there's new legs right there. I guess, probably, that sounds right. Yeah, the thing that fascinates me is, when it comes right down to it, apparently he was left with his head, his lungs and heart, and one hand. They saved his hand.
Yeah.
So it's just like, how how did this hand manage to escape unscathed?
Well, they did such a bang up job of restoring his face. You would think that they sort of gave
Yeah.
up on everything else.
Yeah, yeah, it's very strange. Like you kind of feel like he'd be a sort of a it'd be a Darth Vader
Yes.
situation where it's like
No,
let's
that's
just seal him up.
exactly that. I mean, Anakin Skywalker was was in lava, and they came away. He came away better than Alex Murphy did.
Yeah, yeah. But they couldn't save his face is the problem. That's right here is apparently Alex Murphy's moneymaker, and they needed to keep this as much as possible.
Yeah, they even said they had to give him like a new eye and everything, but his face looked exactly perfect.
Yeah, pretty solid. Well done, guys.
Yeah, well, very well done, indeed. Now, another big change between 1987 RoboCop and the 2014 RoboCop is that the 2014 Alex Murphy has a much longer adjustment period to being RoboCop than the 1987 RoboCop. That's sort of like, okay, you're RoboCop now. Like, okay, let me get down to business. Let me start. like 5 minutes after he was RoboCop, he's out on patrol. Whereas the Alex Murphy of the modern day Alex Murphy needed a much longer adjustment period.
Yeah, and before I comment on that, I will say that anybody who might be listening to this in the future, go back and watch the video, and you would get to see Rob do his little robot moves there, which was a lot of fun.
Sure.
But yeah, that's one of the things that I liked about the new one. Not necessarily over the old one, but it's a major thing to realize I don't have my body anymore. I'm not who I was. Am I still who I am? Like, my brain is still here, so I guess I'm still who I am, but it's all different. And I like that they actually gave him room to breathe as far as
when they opened the suit
adjusting.
and you could see his lungs.
Well, yeah, I guess they did give him plenty of room in that sense, but also just to adjust to what it is, to what he is now. And there's a scene that I really like where he just kind of breaks free and just starts running away, and that really kind of hit home because, not to get too personal, but like I've lost some people in my life, and it's a very sad, upsetting thing. And I found myself in those moments feeling like I just wish I could run away because you just want to get away from this thing that you're feeling. But of course, the thing is him, and he can't get away from it. And he's literally running with no sense of where he's going. He just wants to get away from what he's feeling. And I really like that scene quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that was my favorite part of the movie. Basically, from when he starts to wake up as RoboCop to start to discover all these things, and then going through the training of being RoboCop. Like I feel like that 20 to 30 minute sequence. I feel like that was the highest point in the movie for me. I feel like that was the most. The most I enjoyed the movie was that period.
Yeah, because not only is he adjusting to it, but we see like the Gary Oldman character and the Michael Keaton character. Like, not only is he figuring out who he is, they're trying to figure out what they want him to be.
Yeah.
And so everybody's adjusting to this new idea of this character called, I guess he is officially called RoboCop at some point, but he's not quite as branded as he is in the original film. But yeah, so it is, I think that is the high point of the film, is that little, and it is a solid stretch of like a half hour. And I feel like that's definitely a difference between the original and the new one that I liked. I thought that was a good call.
Now, do you feel like OmniCorp is basically an allegory for Apple here in this film? Did you feel like, is that what the filmmakers are trying to say? That I came away with the takeaway, the filmmakers think that Apple is bad.
Perhaps. They certainly, in both cases, they have a very charismatic CEO who's able to convince people to just kind of follow him, I guess, and is very much the front man for the company. But
even
yeah, I guess
the factory that they're at, like, isn't that what they're going for in the film? That this is like the Apple plant.
Yes, and that it's located. That's a nice reveal too, is when he's running away from the factory or whatever you call it, and then jumps over the wall, and he's in the middle of a rice paddy in China. I think that's a nice reveal, and yeah, there's a little bit of satire in there as well.
Yeah, so that all was really cool. Now, how about RoboCop, Alex Murphy? You addressed this earlier. He doesn't seem to have a big issue with I am no longer an anatomically correct person. I mean, would it have killed them to make RoboCop anatomically correct?
Well, I don't think it would have killed them. I think it would have killed anybody that he would have had sex with.
No.
Um, like, like what would a robo orgasm look like? Sounds terrifying.
I don't know. It sounds very well, it depends.
Efficient. I bet it's very efficient.
Very efficient. I feel like in both of the films, I feel like we didn't touch on this matter.
Yeah, I feel like there should be at least one scene of him realizing, wow, I'm really certainly not a human like I was, but I'm also not a man anymore. I'm literally just this machine.
Yeah, I'm like a Ken doll now.
Exactly, yes. And that's the thing is, I feel like we're joking, but I feel like that's a genuinely, that would be a very powerful scene to see.
Yeah, it would bum me out. I would definitely be bummed out. I would have questions.
Yeah, I'd be a little down.
Especially when they invent the second RoboCop suit. Like, I'd be like, it's one thing that's like, okay, this is what we have for you. But then when they go back to the drawing board, I would say, hey, do we have a suggestion box anywhere? I have some ideas for ways to improve the RoboCop suit.
No, like, what? I think we've perfected. It's like, no, there's one issue that I'm thinking of. It's like, no, I think we got it. Nah, it's, I realize that I'm just the test subject, but I've got some suggestions.
Because even the original RoboCop had the thing like that his hand could open up, and then that like that needle could come out. You would think that they could invent something similar for the RoboCop 2014.
So, yeah, because basically he uses it as a weapon in the original, but it's essentially like some kind of adapter, and really, that's kind of what it is. And so, they just treat it like that.
See, the problem is that RoboCop 2014 is all on Wi-Fi, and he doesn't need to connect to anything. And that's the problem. We've come too far as technology goes.
Yeah, maybe they found a way for him to have like wireless sex, and it's all in here.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe that might be what it is.
Wow, we focused on that a lot more than I expected to.
Let's talk about the battle sequence who's this bad guy that they come up with that is the guy who trains the other robots? Rick Maddox is his name.
Yeah, played by Jackie Earle Haley, and maybe my favorite performance. I'm a big fan of Jackie Earle Haley as an actor. He's surprisingly
what's he best known for?
Well, let's see. I would say at this point he's best known for playing Rorschach in Watchmen.
Got it.
But he was Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake that didn't really go anywhere. Mm-hmm. He was in a movie called Little Children that he was nominated for an Oscar for and should have won. But before that, he was known primarily as a child actor. He was in Bad News Bears and Breaking Away and that kind of thing. And then he just came back and is like this really effortless actor. And yeah, I liked his performance a lot, and I believed his character. His character is actually a little, for lack of a better term, prejudice. Like, he really just does not like the idea of this guy maybe putting him out of a job to a certain extent, but also seems to have just a philosophical problem with mixing man and machine and is taking it out on Murphy, which leads to a really great sequence that I liked a lot, which is like sort of a, not necessarily a training sequence, but like sort of a test sequence where they're testing RoboCop against one of the like drone type robots, and then Jackie Earle Haley like plays music over, and of course he plays "If I Only Had a Heart," sung by the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, and that's a nice little moment, especially like seeing violence with that very pleasant song playing overhead is that's a nice moment. I like that a lot, and I like that character a lot.
Boy, Maddox really felt like he was hilarious when he was playing the "If I Only Had a Heart." He couldn't have been more pleased with himself than when he was playing the music during the test sequence.
Yeah, he must have really like, because I assume he doesn't just have that song at the ready, so I assume he went on his computer the night before and was like, I'm really gonna get him with this one, and like downloaded it from iTunes or something like that, put it on his iPod.
Yeah. Like he was like, behind the scenes, like he's like telling everybody, oh, get this, okay? So during the thing, when they were doing the whole big sequence, the whole big like GoldenEye N64 thing that we're gonna do with him, I'm gonna play if I only had a brain or a heart from Wizard of Oz. Like, what? It's hilarious, right? That's great. Like,
And
yeah,
then
I
two
guess so.
days
I guess so. Maddox.
and then 2 days later it'd be like, hey guys, guess what I did? I did this thing over here, and he lost. So I feel like I'm kind of proved to be the victor here, like the real victor.
um, you would got to think that wouldn't it have been easier if we would have done that whole big test sequence that we do when Michael Keaton comes and everything? Could have we have done that in virtual reality also? Because I feel like we wasted about $90 billion of robots in that sequence.
Yeah, it does seem like. First off, it seems like a weird test because RoboCop is never going to be tested in this way. First off, he's probably not. I mean, I guess he is. Towards the end, he does face off against probably like 15 guys, but there are like 25 of those robots. Each one of them infinitely a better shot than any human could be. So like they're really. I feel like I feel like they have too much of a heightened standard for RoboCop in that sense. But I guess he met it, so good for him.
Yeah, couldn't we have done that somehow, like with laser tag or something like that, where if you shoot the robot, then the robot is dead? It seems like
Yeah,
really this was a very dangerous and expensive test of RoboCop.
just go with paintball or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just me. That's just me. But I don't run OmniCorp. All right, so then after that, they say, RoboCop, you can come home now. It's time to let's put RoboCop out on the street. And so he has a nice moment. He goes home and visits his kid. Did you find it believable that the kid DVR'd all of the Blackhawk games for RoboCop to watch when he comes home?
Was it the
Oh, Red
Blackhawks or
Wings.
the?
Red
It'd be the
Wings.
Red Wings. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's maybe not all of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
That takes up a lot of space.
I feel like I would have said, hey, can we just start? Let's just start with the new ones. I don't want to go back and watch, 50 hockey games on DVR now. That's a lot of hockey to catch up on. Can you just upload it to my? I can do that now. Just upload the DVR to my head. You watch it also, and then we'll both have it.
Yeah, I will have it. I will have watched it in like, I don't know, 2 seconds, and then you can spend the next several months watching every game, and then maybe we'll catch up at the end of the season.
But could you do that with a sports team? Like if you lived in Detroit, could you just say, hey, I'm gonna DVR, 5 months of hockey. Don't tell me what happens. Like at some point, like doesn't it become like the Stanley Cup Finals, and I feel like you would know if the Red Wings are in it or not.
You'd probably know that, yes. But I will say that if there is any sport where you probably could be pretty safe, not with people not knowing, it would be hockey.
That's very fair. That's very fair. So I thought this was also one of the major holes in the film. So then they get back to RoboCop has to live at the police station now, and OmniCorp I guess has a setup in Detroit, and so. He goes there and he has like he meets up with Lewis again, and basically like Lewis is like saying to him like, hey, did you hear about Valen? And RoboCop is basically saying to Valen like, hey, me and you, we're gonna take Valen down, and we're gonna get back out on the street, and we're gonna continue with this rogue operation that we're conducting here. And now. For RoboCop, now, isn't everything that RoboCop says and does, isn't it all, like, wired back into? So I'm not really sure how RoboCop, as Alex Murphy and Lewis, were going to be continuing this rogue operation without everybody at OmniCorp being in the loop on this.
Yeah, you mentioned that was a plot hole. It's at least, like, an inconsistency because... Certainly by the end of the film, they want us to believe that OmniCorp basically just controls everybody's lives. But it's like, oh, but this major thing that could eventually tie back to them, they missed that one. That one they did. By the way, which is led by a mechanical man that they invented. But no, that's fine. I don't know. I guess the guy monitoring RoboCop was like off that day.
He was asleep at the switch. He was listening to Maddox tell the Tin Man story again.
Got it, Rick.
And so then they're gonna introduce RoboCop, and it's gonna be a whole big thing, and so they're gonna have a press conference. And I thought this was also a curious timing on the part of everybody at OmniCorp, that about 5 minutes before the press conference, they decide to upload all of the Detroit PD files into Robocop prior to the press conference. I don't know if the Detroit Free Press was going to have questions about Robocop. I've got a question. Back in 2003, there was an open case. Could you please comment on the status of? So, did you think that was poor timing on the part of Omnicorp to upload all of the data right before the press conference?
Yeah, I think so. And the Dr. Norton character, played by Gary Oldman, he seems like a pretty intelligent, sensitive guy. I feel like he would understand. Hey, if we put, what was it? This, I think, like, it goes back to 2011, and I don't remember when the movie takes place. Something in the 2020s. So it's like, all right, so 10 to 15 years worth of crime stats. Let's just shove them into somebody's brain. And by the way, we haven't turned off his emotions. Like, I would think that this guy, who's pretty smart, would have gotten the impression, like, you know what, maybe let's do this at least 24 hours before the giant press conference that's going to make or break.
Or how about after the press conference?
Yeah, there's an option. There's an option. I mean, I do like the idea of it. I like the idea of him being loaded with all this stuff, and he's having an emotional reaction to it, like I have to do something. It's a very Batman type of response, but I liked it. It worked well. But yeah, it doesn't make a great deal of sense.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if that was the best thing, but it all works out because then he spots a guy in the front row who was a threat, and so he is able to arrest somebody on the spot during a press conference, which has probably never been done before.
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, that was very good. Good work, and everybody is very thrilled with RoboCop at that point in the film. Even the Novak element, everybody out there in Novak Nation they're all really couldn't be happier.
Which does bring up this idea of they don't go to the Novak well very often, and so when they do, I think it works well. And so, like, following that rather extreme kind of ridiculous scene with, like, this guy who's super thrilled about it and puts it in, like, the perspective of, like, public relations and how the public might think of it. That was a really effective thing, and it makes you, it kind of deflects, it redirects your attention, because in the moment you're like, this whole thing is kind of silly. Oh wait, hang on, now here's something even sillier in the form of Samuel L. Jackson and his weird hair, who's telling me it's good and he's being funny and all that. So, like, they really timed that out well.
Yeah, I wish they would have shown us more of what's on TV besides Novak element, like they did in the original RoboCop.
Yeah, I would like to see what else, what was occupying the pop culture at the time.
I also feel like one thing that was odd, though, Novak element, it's so futuristic, and he's got, like, holographic guests, and, like, he's, like, waving his arms and putting stats up on the screen. But then again, he's also, like, cutting to, like, magazine covers and, like, newspapers. So the print media has somehow survived and is thriving here in the time of RoboCop 2014's future.
Yeah, which is strange because it's not thriving now.
It comes back.
So, like, it comes back. Interestingly enough, they'll bring back video stores.
Yeah. In the future, yeah, you want to invest in video stores, robots, and magazines. Those are the big three. So then, now RoboCop, now he's officially on patrol and just, riding his motorcycle around, like, 100 miles an hour, but he's doing a good job. One of my favorite things that happens is one of the guys that he is, like, I forget which one of the crimes that he's investigating is. I think this might be when he finds a guy and this is when he's going to go to shut down the big drug dealer that has, like, a whole drug factory going on. So he finds one of his associates coming out, and so he, like, finds this guy and he, like, does like a computer scan of him, and he does it says on the screen the guy is totally stoned, which I really like that.
Yeah,
like
that seems...
His software is able to make that diagnostic.
Yeah, they don't say, I don't know, what would be the legal term for totally stoned? But I have to assume, yeah, the fact that I just asked that question leads me to believe that totally stoned would not be the legal term.
Yeah. The RoboCop has some weird futuristic things that he's able to go back and look at video and get readings on people's emotional states also.
Yeah, that's something that my co-host of Battleship Pretension, he and I were talking about RoboCop. I liked it more than he did. And one of the things that he said is that like RoboCop has so much access. He has access to so much information all the time that he can just reconstruct stuff that has happened in the past, because apparently there's cameras everywhere, and so he can determine like a person's emotional situation, where somebody was like a year ago. He just has access to all of it, and
Yeah.
just like after a while, it's like, okay, so at this point he's basically Superman. I mean, RoboCop's kind of a superhero anyway, but at this point he's Superman. Like he might as well be telepathic at that point, when you can dig into somebody's emotional state and then probably pair it with video camera footage of what they were doing any day of their life. And it just, he becomes, I think, a little too indestructible at that point.
Well, RoboCop 2014 is certainly much more of a badass on a number of levels than RoboCop 1987. Like basically,
Yeah.
RoboCop 2014 would kill RoboCop 1987 like instantly, because RoboCop 1987 was basically, he was bulletproof and he was strong, but he was very very rigid, and where RoboCop 2014 really is like Superman. He can run at high speeds, he can jump 50 feet if he needs to. There's basically nothing he can't do except for have conjugal visits with Mrs. RoboCop.
Indeed, yes. And really, I mean, I'd be willing to trade all that other stuff for that one thing, I think.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So maybe not all the other stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah, he was pretty much ultra powerful, RoboCop 2014. But so now he sort of becomes the zombie, and now we have this whole situation developing with Mrs. RoboCop and the kid. And I do feel like Omnicorp does a rather lackluster job here of sort of keeping a lid on Mrs. RoboCop.
Yeah, their whole theory seems to be, let's ignore her and maybe she'll go away. You know, the way the way widows do. Yeah, it doesn't seem like the most thought out for somebody who's as like focus grouped as Omnicorp is. They don't seem to really be that interested in dealing with this, I don't know, major time bomb waiting to explode in the form of RoboCop's wife.
Yeah, they sort of say to her, okay, let's put a gag order on her, but I don't really know what that means.
Yeah, and it does seem like it's like a gag order. I guess maybe that means like if she talks, she could be arrested. But at the same time, it's like when you're dealing with somebody that's as emotionally distressed as she is, I feel like that kind of thing doesn't actually do anything. And that's why, and this goes back to like that's why I feel like it would be best to just eliminate the mother and son. I don't mean kill them. I mean just have them. They've moved on with their lives, you know,
Yeah.
and then it's not so much of an issue. And it does make RoboCop just like truly alone at that point, and it's a harder thing for him to deal with. And then we, the audience, don't have to be bothered by, Abby Cornish.
RoboCop's kid was having a hard time at school also. Why were the other kids making fun of him?
I don't know. It seems like the last thing you would do to somebody whose father is RoboCop.
Yeah, like that kind of feels like a big deal at career day, where it's like, yeah. Oh, Billy, what's your dad do? Oh, he's a banker. Oh, Charlie, what's your dad do? Oh, he's a doctor. Oh, yeah, my dad's RoboCop. He's a robot
that guy
and a cop.
Yeah, you know that guy that all of you idolize? Yeah, that's my father. So, and he can kill any one of you at any time, so maybe stop pushing me around.
Yeah. I think my emotional status is dropping below 50% right now. I would lay off, guys. I wouldn't want it to hit 40% because my dad will be here.
Yeah, it's like the bus
the visor will go
in
down.
Speed.
Yeah. You want to keep anybody want to tell me a joke right now? Because if this hits 40, Dad's showing up.
Yeah, we got to keep my humor level right about there. Otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know about everything going on with the kid. So RoboCop is starting to get bummed out. So he ends up going back to his house, but then he doesn't really go in and talk to, like, I thought he was going home to go talk to his wife, but he just goes home and goes and investigates his murder a little bit more.
Yeah, which is a neat idea. I liked that. But at the same time, he's so able to just piece everything together that, I don't know. And part of me thinks, like, And what did he get out of that investigation? I forget. Like, did he get a specific piece of evidence out of it?
Yeah, I think he was able to sort of like access records, and he basically was able to tell that the cops were dirty. I think from the whole thing with Val. Did he go to Valen first, or did he go and arrest the dirty cops? Oh no, no. What happened was he goes to he goes after Valen, and then
Yeah.
he finds the prints on the gun, and then he goes to the police station.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's.
let's talk about the battle scene at Valen's headquarters where RoboCop shows up. So
I liked that a lot. I enjoyed it.
Valen has his army guys. He's like, all right, RoboCop's on his way. I feel like if I was Valen, I think I would be pooping a brick through the whole movie. From once I started to hear the rumors that, oh, that guy I tried to blow up, yeah, that guy's gonna be RoboCop. Oh, yeah, I think okay. That guy RoboCop's coming back to Detroit. RoboCop's on the streets now. Okay, I'm gonna actually shut down my operation here in Detroit. I think I'm gonna move to Chicago and
Yeah.
set up ground over there. I'm gonna move out of the jurisdiction of RoboCop. I think, considering I tried to kill RoboCop, and now he is now on patrol in Detroit looking to arrest me.
Yeah, the guy I attempted to kill is now virtually indestructible. That should be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem, or at the very least, it's like, all right, guys, RoboCop's on his way, so get ready. I'll see you later. Like, it does seem like he would distance himself from it a little bit.
Yeah. So what did you think about the strategy of Valen's guys that, okay, RoboCop's coming. Everybody put on your night vision goggles. Let's turn all the lights off. Did that seem like that was going to slow RoboCop down and all?
It didn't seem like it. I don't know why he would think that.
It seemed
It
like that
seems
would
like
just be more confusing for everybody. I think I would just leave all the lights on, and I don't know maybe what you could do. Maybe I would put like, could you put like water on the floor? Maybe that would maybe that would short circuit RoboCop. I would have had a hose instead of a machine gun, and that's what I would.
yeah,
I would have sprayed RoboCop with a hose.
and maybe somehow get like electricity involved or something like that. But yeah, and that's the other thing is like they do make it clear that what was it, like 50 caliber or above actually can pierce his armor.
Right.
And every single guy, and there are like 15 guys there, every single one of them seems to be shooting a 50 caliber bullet, and they're not missing. Like, they're getting him. And he still makes his way through, and he hurts his visor a little bit, but he's fine.
Right. At that point, if you're one of Valen's guys, they've said, all right, 50 caliber and above to kill RoboCop, and you're holding your gun and like, all right, I got 20. All right, I'm gonna see you guys later. I'm out of here. I think I would have just snuck out the back.
Yeah. It reminds me of did you see Iron Man 3?
No.
There's a really wonderful scene. I guess I'll spoil it for you. It's not like it's a major twist or anything.
Spoiler alert.
Yes, for Iron Man 3. There's a scene where Tony Stark is going through the Mandarin's hideout and stuff, and he's just taking out this thug and that thug, and then he finds himself face to face with one last guy, and the guy throws down his gun. He's like, you know what? These guys are weird. I'm leaving, and he just walks away, and Tony Stark lets him go because he's no longer a threat. And that's something that I've always wanted to see in a movie, is someone say like, look, I recognize I'm getting paid a fair amount here, but like, this guy's gonna kill me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm leaving. It's not worth it. And I don't know how much Valen was paying, but I feel like those guys, like, they had to have seen, RoboCop's feats on the news. They had to know that, like,
Yeah.
I think the odds are against me on this one.
I think so. It happens in the Batman movies where Batman shows up and people are sort of freaked out. Nobody seemed to be too intimidated by RoboCop. Like, oh man, it's RoboCop. All right, I'm out of here. I thought this was going up against a regular guy. I'm not going against RoboCop.
Yeah, and it does seem, I believe you said it earlier, it does seem like even as people say his name, they should really think about what they're saying.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't want to deal, it's like, oh, RoboCop's coming. Oh right, the robot cop, the cop who is a robot.
Right.
I'm just a regular guy. I would venture to say, at best, average level of intelligence criminal, and I feel like the robot cop is going to win.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to pursue another line of work.
That's very, very fair. So after the battle scene at Valen's, Then we go back to the police station, and then RoboCop is gonna, and I want to call him Chalky, but it's Jack Lewis.
Yeah.
They're gonna go and they're gonna bust the dirty cops. And I mean, did it really take? You kind of figure from the beginning of the movie these guys seem like dirty cops, especially when they were on YouTube talking about the investigation
Yeah.
of all this. Right? Shouldn't that have been a real tell? Those guys were dirty cops.
Yeah, anytime a cop is, it's like, hey, what do you think about this investigation into a major crime lord? And there's like,
Nothing to
it's
see here.
fine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel like maybe that's your first indication. But it was a nice twist having the chief in on it as well. Um, oh, we're doing spoilers, right?
We spoiled the whole movie.
Yeah, I guess we are going through it bit by bit. But yeah, I liked that, and but it was just a weird. And there's an echo of the original film in that where like he's confronting an authority figure and then gets shut down. But it seemed very arbitrary. Like from that point on, I really, because much as I might make fun of it, I was kind of on board with the movie for a good portion of it. But then from that moment on, I wasn't really on board. I don't know. It just like once they started to incorporate like the corporate complicity in the whole thing, I was like, you kind of lost me. You should have tied it. You should have tied Michael Keaton and all those guys. You should have tied them to the criminals earlier. And I don't think they're even associated with the criminals.
They're not.
They just have their own thing going.
Yeah, they found out that once RoboCop starts investigating the dirty cops, they're like, hey, this is a good thing. And they're like, yeah, well, then isn't he going to start looking into us and looking into Omnicorp? This seems like there's a lot of loose threads that are out there at the very least. How long is it going to be before he starts to... So they're being very proactive, as, people who run big companies are. And so they're saying, eventually he's going to come after us. Let's shut this down, okay? So they sort of say, okay, we're going to kill RoboCop. And so I do feel like they are a little overly aggressive with wanting to get the news out there that RoboCop is dead.
Yeah, it seems like such a weird, I don't know, it seems like such a weird choice for the screenwriters to make, because it's all surprisingly passive. The idea that RoboCop is just laying there, incapacitated, and then somebody starts him back up again. Oh, it was Oldman, I think.
Yeah.
And that was it. And it's just like, I don't know. I kind of like the idea of him being maybe a little helpless, but I don't know. Didn't sit right with me.
The thing that I didn't like about that was, okay, so then the doctor and this, what's his name? His name is Dr. Norton. So
Yeah.
basically, what he does is he goes up to RoboCop and then he takes like a little like a little piece of plastic like off the top of his head. He's like, all right, I've removed your tracker now. You have no connection whatsoever to Omnicorp anymore. And it's like, how many firefights has RoboCop been in through the movie that you could take your finger and take like the one little thing and pull it off his head, and then all of a sudden he's completely disconnected from Omnicorp? That seems very easy to do.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go back once again to what you said. This is a robot cop.
Yeah.
You don't want him investigating you, and you actually have control over him. And I'd say step one is I got to know where he is. So we need a good tracker. I feel like that's something that you plant in the base of his robot stomach. Like that somebody has to, and maybe have a big dramatic scene where he knows it's there and he rips into his own stomach to pull it out. That'd be a neat thing.
That'd be neat. Yeah, you would think that you would not want that to be very easily accessible either by RoboCop or by anybody else. That there seems very little practical uses where it's like, this $100 billion robot cop that we built, let's just make a really simple way that we could lose any connection with him. So
yeah,
we
we've
can't
got this
track
little...
him, we can't control him. Let's just put that like right there on the temple where you could just sort of like pull it out and then tracking gone.
Yeah, I bought this thing at Radio Shack for like $175. We'll just stick that to him. It shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
Radio Shack makes good products.
Hey, they're back. They took all their stuff from the 80s back. And now they... Oh, no, RoboCop was from the 80s. They took him back, too.
There you go.
Blue Bear in the chat room says, Michael Keaton looked old. Were you concerned about how old Michael Keaton looked in the film?
Not really. He is old, but as far as
He
sorry,
was good. I liked Michael. I thought Michael Keaton was one of
yeah,
the best parts in the movie.
yeah, he still has like kind of that youthful energy that I haven't really seen from him in a while. And it really brought. I mean, when you think about it, his character's just kind of generic, corrupt corporate CEO. Um, but he actually made him kind of entertaining and kind of funny. And you find yourself, he's kind of like, oddly enough to bring up another Iron Man movie, he's kind of like Jeff Bridges in the first Iron Man, where he's a guy that even when you are rooting against him, you still kind of like him, and he's still kind of charming. And so, yeah, he is older, but he still retains his Michael Keaton-ness.
Yeah. How come nobody ever shoots RoboCop in the face? In either movie, nobody ever aims for RoboCop's face.
Yeah, it does seem like, because they're quick to say, hey, only 50 caliber, unless you shoot right here, in which case you need, I don't know, like a BB gun or any number of things. Like, just
a sharp
it does
stick?
seem like, yeah, right here. I think I found the exhaust port in the Death Star, and it's right here.
Somebody wrote an angry letter about that. That's actually a misconception.
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
it seems like why not let the RoboCop visor go down all the way? That seems like a mistake in the design, another flaw in the design, to not have the RoboCop faceplate go all the way down.
From the PR standpoint of the corporation, I do understand that they want to emphasize that this is not merely a drone, that there is a human element to him as represented by his mouth. But it does seem like, yeah, let's do this. Let's have the full visor right here.
Yeah.
And maybe like a plexiglass.
Yeah, it's glass.
Right.
That would be good. Plastic,
that
sort of thing. That would be good. Even a little protection. A
Sure.
little bit. All right, so then we have a whole thing where now RoboCop is now trying to get to find Michael Keaton and arrest him for trying to kill him. And so I kind of felt like I didn't really understand what Michael Keaton was doing with Mrs. RoboCop at that point, where he sort of like offered her a deal and she said no, and then he was like, come on my helicopter with me. And she's like, okay. Why was she going to go on the helicopter with them?
I don't know. The wife is such a problematic character. Like, she just the moments that she chooses to believe the villains, and then when she doesn't choose to believe, like she's very inconsistent. She's basically whatever the story needs her to be at that moment.
Yeah, so I think she says like, oh, there's a problem, you should come with us. And she doesn't really have a lot of follow-up questions, just like, all right, well, we'll go on your helicopter, Michael Keaton.
Yeah, the guy who's telling me that my husband is dead and is likely the responsible party, this should be fine, right? I'll just go ahead. Like, he's not going to kill me, certainly.
So RoboCop ends up like having to come up through the building. Now, were you surprised that there was for robots not even being legal and there being a big vote in the Congress that day in the United States, Omnicorp seemed to sure have a lot of the ED 207s. Is that what they are?
Ed 209. Yeah, I guess.
Boy, I mean, were you surprised to see that they had so many of those out there, considering that robots are not even legal in the United States?
I think they were just made legal that day, so maybe that's when they just had their finger on the button, like, we got the vote, click. All right, now we've got Ed 209s all over our lobby. Yeah, it's clearly that's just they had that because it's in the original film is having to go through this first horrible line of defense.
Yeah.
But it bothered me the way they dealt with the Ed 209. Like in the original, it's such this monstrous thing that you just,
and it makes animal noises. It's like
yeah, it was great. And like but in this one it's just like, oh, it's just one more robot that needs to be dispatched.
I will say that the special effects on the Ed 209 came a long way. I mean, I don't know if it was like stop motion animation on the Ed 209 in the 1987 one. Yeah.
It was. It still worked for me. I still liked it.
The animal noises helped it though. That it was like everyone was mad like
Yeah, I was back when I was in film school and we were learning about sound and the role that sound can play in a movie. They used RoboCop as an example, saying like when RoboCop moves, the sound that they layered on was like tiny, like like the sound of like a watch, just very very precise. Whereas the sound that they layered on to the Ed 209 was like big grinding gears, clumsy, unreliable, and then of course they layered on the animal noise that's just like he's ferocious,
It's like
and
a
then when he gets
Rottweiler.
tipped, yeah, and then when he gets tipped over on his back, they just have a squealing pig noise, which I thought was
It's like
ridiculous.
crying.
Yeah, but that's the thing. In doing so, they make the Ed 209 into an actual like kind of a villain type of thing, as opposed to just another piece of equipment.
Yeah. So basically, we get to the climactic scene in the end where RoboCop's on the roof, and much like in RoboCop 1987, there was Directive 4: you can't kill anybody from Omnicorp. I felt like did they really establish this earlier in the film, and I missed it? Of the red team, I'm on the red team, so you can't
They
get me.
in the very first scene, they do put the report. Jackie Earle Haley is talking to the reporter, and he says, "You've got this red thing on you. They will not attack you."
Okay.
So they do in the first
Subtle.
scene, then they do not mention it again until Jackie Earle Haley is fighting with RoboCop, and then they do it again. So like there is admittedly a solid 90 minutes between mentions of that thing. But yeah, they do set it up early. I just feel like maybe they could have mentioned it once
I
more.
feel like in that final scene also, Michael Keaton has has a security detail with him who are surprisingly inactive when RoboCop comes after Michael Keaton. They seem like they're really putting a lot of stock in the red team wristband.
Yeah, and rightfully so, they should. And that's where they get into the idea, and that's the difference between the new one and the old one, is this idea of it's like, oh well, he's not, his programming says he can't shoot at this red stuff, but he's a man, damn it, and he's gonna do it, and he shoots him. But as opposed to the original where he literally cannot override, was it Directive 4? Is that what it was?
Yeah, Directive 4.
And so I feel like in the new one they try to have it be a little bit more hopeful that he is a man, he's not just his programming. Whereas in the original it's like, no, he's both. He's genuinely both.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it seemed a little cheesy. And yeah, it does. Again, it does seem like you mentioned the security detail. They're like, oh, the guy we're running from just showed up. We're fine.
Yeah.
We don't need to be in on this. He's got the little bracelet. It should be fine.
I like that the helicopter guy's like, oh man, that looks like there's a lot of hot water down there. We're just let's get out of here.
Yeah.
RoboCop's here. The one person in the whole movie that says, oh man, it's RoboCop, I'm out of here, is the guy that's flying the helicopter.
You know what? Hey, good for him.
Hey,
it turned out to be the right instinct.
Good instinct. So then at the end of the movie, what they decide to do is and we didn't talk about this, that there's basically there's like RoboCop suit 1.0, which is very similar to the Peter Weller RoboCop suit, and then they go to the 2.0, the black RoboCop suit. Which did you prefer?
Well, because I'm a purist, I like the original, but the new one, it doesn't look bad. But it's certainly, I will say this, there's definitely a difference. And you mentioned earlier about how the original RoboCop walked kind of clunkily and that sort of thing. And in the original suit, it's easy to see how that was possible, whereas in the new one, it is much more streamlined and Batman-like and Ninja-like and that kind of thing. So, I'm okay with either one. Actually, a lot of people were really pissed off at the new suit, and it's like, it looks fine.
Yeah, I didn't love the new suit. I felt like it was too much like a Batman suit. Like I kind of felt like I didn't see a huge difference between the Bat suit and the RoboCop suit, and I kind of liked the one that's silver because I felt like that was more iconic to RoboCop.
Yeah, and I guess it does note a very specific difference. Is like one is very clearly metallic, whereas the other could look just like body armor, like Batman has. So yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah. Okay. So overall, RoboCop. Any closing thoughts? I also want to talk about a couple things that we wish they would have brought back from the original one. I guess then the movie closes with Samuel L. Jackson stuff. Did you like when they just let Samuel L. Jackson start cursing on Novak Report?
Here's the thing. Yes, I did, but it's one of those things where, like, because it's Samuel L. Jackson and he's saying, MF, which is his word, apparently. He, like, owns it now.
Yeah.
It almost seemed like a contractual obligation, whereas if they had almost any other actor playing that role, like, let's say let's see, who's good at anger? Nick Nolte. Let's say it was Nick Nolte, and they have him just eventually he just cannot contain his anger anymore and just goes absolutely insane. It'd still be funny, but it would feel funny inside the character. Whereas when it's Samuel L. Jackson saying, it's just like, oh, it's about time Samuel L. Jackson showed up, and it just felt like a little too meta.
Yeah, it's a little meta. Do you
Yeah.
think that was in the script, or is that like, oh, we have Samuel L. Jackson, or does Sam Jackson improv that? What do you think?
Oh, I would venture to say he always has it at the ready in case they need it. But I don't
Or
know.
if they
I
call
could
him
see.
Lawrence Fishburne?
Oh boy. You know what? I did not watch that clip because I felt like it would be so uncomfortable to watch. So
He took it pretty well. I mean, he was very quick with it. He was very funny.
oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's good. I have a hard time watching celebrity. Not that it was a meltdown, and he had perfectly good reason to be angry. But I have a hard time watching. I avoid conflict if I can. I like to get my conflict out through hyper violent '80s movies. But yeah. So it's maybe it was in the original script. But if I had to guess, I would say once they cast Samuel L. Jackson that character, like we need to make a script change, and I think I know what we're gonna do.
So tell me, Tyler, are we getting set up here for RoboCop 2, or will that depend on the weekend box office?
Weekend box office at the moment is terrible. Um,
Oh,
and they even added 2 days because it came out on Wednesday instead of a Friday. So
yeah.
they had Wednesday, Thursday, and as of right now, it is being demolished by the Lego Movie, which I haven't seen, but I hear is really good. So I'm sure it'll find a life. Oh shoot, maybe it won't. Oh, I'm still thinking in terms of old media. I was gonna say maybe it'll find a life on video, but that's the thing is like maybe if it goes to streaming, maybe it'll find a cult audience. But that's the thing is I think most people who are fans enough of RoboCop to be like, oh, I'm aware of RoboCop, I want to see it. They're probably fans of the original film and they don't want to see the remake, much less a bland remake.
Yeah. How was this supposed to come out in 2013 and got pushed back?
I'm not sure. I was under the impression it was supposed to come out in the summer. I don't remember which summer it was, but yeah, it is worth noting that they threw it in the dumping grounds of January and February. So yeah, I don't know exactly when it was supposed to come out, but it feels like a late August release to me.
Yeah.
That they just either moved forward or moved back.
All right, could we talk about a couple things that we wish they would have brought back from the 1987 RoboCop? You want to go back and forth?
Absolutely. Can I go first?
Yes.
Melting Man.
Yes, yes, that's on my list also.
That is to me like I saw this movie. I would venture to say too young, and that thing is so disturbing. Like it haunted my childhood, but
Yeah.
it's so effective and so just gross but kind of funny.
Yeah.
That's one where it's like, yeah, you can't get away with that in a PG-13 movie, but man, I wish they'd had at least a reference to it.
So if you haven't seen the 1987 version, the RoboCop is like fighting a guy who's like driving a truck, and he veers his truck into a giant canister marked toxic waste, and he crashes into it. All the fluid comes out, and then he runs out the back, and he's sort of like a half man, half pig at that point.
Yeah, basically this stuff has just immediately started to transform him, and just he's basically just starting to dissolve, like come apart. And then there's this, oh my gosh, and then there's the scene where he's just walking along and he's begging for help. It's weird. I don't like that character. He's not a good guy, but I feel sympathy for him in that moment because he certainly doesn't want this. And he wants help from his friends, but his friends are like, get away from me.
Yeah.
Knowing that they're not really close friends. And then he gets hit by a car, and here's the thing, as gross as it is, it's such a neat idea that he literally, when the car hits him, like I said, he's starting to dissolve, the car hits him, and he literally liquefies.
Yes.
All over the car, and it's so disgusting to watch, but so invigorating. It's almost like the end of Raiders where faces are melting. Like you just can't help but watch it over and over again.
It's fantastic. All right, another thing I wish they would have brought back, the 1987 RoboCop had a runner throughout the movie, and I don't even know the significance of that. I'd buy that for $1.
Which they do reference. They do say that the line, "I wouldn't buy that for $1," is said casually
Ah,
by Jackie Earl Haley,
okay, there
and
you go.
he sells it. It's a neat reference, but yes, I like the idea that in the future people are just fans of terrible sitcoms. And don't get me wrong, people are fans of terrible sitcoms now, but yeah, that's a show I want to see.
Yeah, it was like some sort of like Benny Hill type show of like some guy with like a bunch of like babes,
Yeah.
every scene ends with I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah, and he just seems so lecherous, and he's like Benny Hill by way of, I don't know, just a dirty old man. I guess Benny Hill is kind of a dirty old man, but this guy's
Yeah.
more overtly dirty.
What else do you wish they brought back from 1987 RoboCop?
I don't know, not like that's the thing is when you're going to remake a movie, like I don't want them to just do a complete, just a total remake and just do the same movie over. But I would say this: Clarence Bodiger, played by Kurtwood Smith from that '70s show, he he's one of the main villains in the original film, and I get a much stronger sense of who he is and how villainous he is, and he's a lot of fun to watch, as opposed to Valen, who's nothing. He's a nothing character. So I wish they had had a stronger, just a stronger villain.
Yeah.
And if they had had specifically Clarence Bodiger and had like a really great actor play him, that would have been great.
What about do you wish that we would have seen somebody shot in the crotch during an attempted rape?
Um, sure, why not?
Why not, right?
We
What?
seem to be fixating on that area in this conversation, so why not take it to the extreme?
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else on RoboCop 2014 or 1987?
If I'll say this, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch the 1987 version. You, Rob, you were happy to have watched it, right?
Yeah. Should I watch RoboCop 2 and 3?
Three, no. I've not seen two, but in researching stuff in preparation for this episode, apparently RoboCop 2 is not bad. It keeps a lot of the ultra violence and it keeps some of the satire, and it's directed by Irvin Kershner, who did Empire Strikes Back.
Oh.
And
Okay.
so apparently it's worth watching. But I've not seen it, but I do want to at this point. But yeah, so any listeners or viewers, if you have not seen the original RoboCop, go watch it. And as far as the new one, I'd say it's a Redbox rental. Like I said, it was better than I expected it to be, and it's a really good example of how good casting and good actors can really elevate a movie. Because the script was fine, it wasn't terrible, but it was fine. But by casting Joel Kinnaman, who I think did a good job as Murphy, and Gary Oldman and Michael Keaton and Jackie Earle Haley and Jay Baruchel and Samuel L. Jackson, by casting all these people, like each one actually did something with the role they were given, and it's kind of worth watching for that reason. And so probably not worth theater prices, but I'd say it's worth watching.
It's a rental.
It's a rental, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully we'll do more and more of these movie recaps as they come along. And if you guys have a movie that's coming up that you would like to see a post-movie recap, let us know, and we'll try to see what we can do.
All right.
All right. So if you want to hear more of Tyler recapping movies, you can check it out on his podcast, which is Battleship Pretension. And Tyler, what's the best way to find that?
You can go to battleshippretension.com. You can find us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter. It's @thepretension. That is not my Twitter. My co-host handles our Twitter. And we're on Facebook. So basically anywhere you can find us.
All right, and we've got much more coming on post-show recaps, both on YouTube and on iTunes. Of course, we're continuing on with our 13 days of House of Cards. We've got another recap coming up today at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, all the way through February 26th. One new episode a day. And plus, we'll be back with Walking Dead recaps live at 10:15 p.m. Eastern on Sunday and 7:15 p.m. Pacific on Sunday. So subscribe. Don't miss an episode of our post-show recaps here on YouTube by clicking the subscribe button or going to postshowrecaps.com/YouTube or subscribe on iTunes at postshowrecaps.com/iTunes. All right. Thanks so much, Tyler. I had a lot of fun talking RoboCop with you. We'll be back again soon.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care, everybody.